We got loads of theists, and we'll keep going that way. I don't know if it's Jiro, Euro, or Hero. My apologies, but they're calling from somewhere in the U.S. and wants to talk about belief, truth, and logic, and why they think God is real. How do we pronounce your name? My apologies.
Hey, Matt. Hey, guys. Jiro.
Jiro.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Japanese.
You're on with Eric and me.
Thanks for having me. In order to begin with my belief, I'd like to get some terms straight. What do you guys do? How do you guys define evidence?
Evidence. So what do you mean by evidence? Evidence for a particular proposition?
Or truth?
I don't.
Or proposition?
Yeah, okay. Evidence that a particular proposition is true. It's not just facts consistent with it. It is the data that more strongly point to one particular conclusion over another.
And as strong as it may be, can we still be wrong about that data?
We can be wrong about anything. I'm someone who does not believe that you can be absolutely 100% confident of anything.
We agree. So would you say that because of that, as small as it may be, gap of not knowing, of doubt, you could say, could that mean that gap is belief in science?
I don't understand that question. Belief is the state of accepting that a proposition is likely true. I don't understand what you mean by is belief a gap?
That gap, like let's say we 98% think that the Earth revolves around the sun, right?
Okay.
And
that is a
we
belief,
might be 2% wrong. We might
for
be
example,
2% leeway.
No. I don't need to quantify anything. I believe that the Earth orbits the sun. I don't know what percent confidence it is, but it's pretty high. It's about as high as it can be. But that is, in fact, a belief. Every position that I accept is a belief. That's all belief means, is that you are convinced of a proposition.
All right. Well, then I'll explain why I'm convinced in God. I've read the Bible. I've read what Jesus said.
Have you?
Yes.
Jiro. So
yes, I have.
it's funny. So no. How do you know you've read what Jesus said?
Oh, well, I believe I've read what Jesus said. Sorry.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you. I'll be frank with you.
Also, we're talking about whether or not there's why you believe in a God, and you're saying it's because you read the Bible. How do you know that has anything to do with whether or not there's a God?
Whether or not there is a God or not, that probably does not have anything to do with it because it does not justify itself.
No. I'm saying the Bible. You said that you're going to tell us why you believe God exists, and you started with, I read the Bible. Why is I read the Bible remotely relevant to the question of whether or not a belief in God is warranted?
I made a mistake. I shouldn't have led with that.
Okay. I'm just asking for clarity. Please continue or start over, whatever it takes.
All right. Well, the Bible does not give me a hint at if there is a God or not. It gives me a hint at who this God is, what he does for us.
Okay, that not only doesn't make sense,
why I believe there's a God.
That not only makes sense, but is completely contradictory. How can a book not give you any perspective on or any reason to confirm that a God exists and yet tell you who God is? Like, what makes the Bible's take on who God is the right one?
I would say because it aligns with logic, it's consistent, it aligns with what we see in this world.
The Bible's take on God and the divine does not, in fact, align with logic, but whether or not something is fallacious or irrational or in conflict is completely separate from whether or not it's an accurate model of God. For example, the notion of the Trinity is patently absurd. So if you believe, if the Bible advocates for a Trinitarian God, that makes no sense at all. But also, I would
You might
argue
think
that
that.
because the Bible advocates for slavery and inequality between genders and countless other things and wars of conquest, all of those things are in conflict with a being all loving. So the Bible gives us a confused mishmash, mixed up perception of God, which could be accurate. You could have a schizophrenic God or a God that is really weird. But the question is, why do you go to the Bible to find out what God is like?
Now, just to be clear, going back on what you said, when you say that, what were you saying? That this is a confused God, a confused schizophrenic mess. You mean do you kind of mean by that you believe that this God is a confused schizophrenic mess?
No, I believe the character
This
presented
is
in the
your belief.
Bible, I believe that the character presented in the Bible as God is incoherent and in conflict with itself and in conflict with reality and unsupported by evidence.
You believe that. I believe otherwise.
Okay.
Now, I
Why
want
do you
to get
believe
into why I believe that there is a God.
why do you believe otherwise? But before we get to that, will you answer the question I've already asked? Why do you go to the
What was the
Bible?
question?
I'm going to ask you right now again for the fourth time. Why do you go to the Bible to find out what God is like?
I haven't just gone to the Bible. I've gone to everything I could think of, and the Bible was the one that holds up for me.
I'm sorry, Jiro. Um, so you've read everything there is to read about what a God is like, and the Bible won.
With all the attempts I've made, yes, the Bible has won.
Okay. Did you read anything that suggested there's no good reason to think there's a God in the first place?
Yes, I have.
Cool. So what convinces you that there's a God?
What convinces me is I've looked around my environment. I've seen the houses, the cars, the everything, and I realize that there needs to be a creator, an origin.
No,
And
you're wrong.
and that is great,
You're
and that
wrong.
is colossal.
No,
That
you're
is
wrong.
colossal. You're interrupting me, Matt.
You're
I see
wrong.
you don't.
I'm interrupting you to explain why you're wrong. This argument
Well,
from
I can interrupt
design.
you, but you'd mute me. You'd mute me
You're
if I
right. You're
interrupted
right.
you
I
like that.
will. You're right. I will mute you because I'm trying to explain something honest to the audience, and you're trying to say the same bad argument that we've heard 50,000 times before. And I'm trying
That
to
is hypocritical.
avoid. It's not hypocritical. It's called "This is our show," and I've done this for 20 years, and you are saying something that is simply not true. And are you interested in learning at all? Because if all you're going to do is
I
come
am
in and
interested
present,
in learning. Are
then
you?
stop talking. Then stop. I am, and I know more about this than you, which I'm about to show. Are you ready?
Yes.
Cool. We know that a building has a designer because all of the available evidence for every building points to a designer, and none of the available evidence points to buildings occurring naturally. That's how we recognize design. It's not about complexity. It's not about intuition. We recognize design by the evidence that points to a designer and the fact that there is not reason to think that X occurs naturally without a designer. There are some things that can occur naturally and can be emulated by a designer as well. When it comes to things like life, we have zero evidence of a designer and complete evidence so far that life occurs naturally. The same thing is true for planets and ecosystems and matter, that these things are naturally occurring and proceed by the laws of nature. And there is no available evidence that suggests these are only created or ever created.
So, Jiro, in a nutshell, looking at everything around us and saying, I refuse to believe this exists without a God, or I fail to see how this can exist naturally, does not at all give you evidence for a God.
It does not. Well, actually,
It does
does.
not.
And
No, it does
here's
not.
the thing. when you say one thing gives you evidence for something and another doesn't, that is also your belief. That lies in your belief. When a person, a flat earther, let's say, versus a round.
I'm going to mute you now.
Yeah, Jiro. Because
you're rapidly. I'm going to back out of this. I want to make sure that Eric gets an opportunity.
Go ahead, Matt. Go into him.
You are rapidly approaching dishonest caller category, and I'd like to stem that because I'd like to think that you're actually being honest. But you started to present an argument from design, and when I pointed out how we recognize design, instead of you started to acknowledge it, and then when you realized that would scuttle your belief, then you said, well, actually it does, and then you talked about how it's just my belief. Okay. My belief about design is consistent with the facts of reality, the understanding of reality, and all of the available evidence. You're correct. I believe this. You believe something else. The question isn't, oh, it's just your belief. It is your belief rationally justified and consistent with the facts of reality? Mine is, yours isn't. But I'm going to give you every opportunity to show that yours is by backing out now. Please continue.
Hello? Am I unmuted?
Were you listening? What was the last thing I said?
You're going to give me the opportunity to prove that my belief is rationally justified and yours.
Okay.
And yours isn't.
Then continue.
Well, I'd like to ask, I'd like to say actually that rationally justified is also a belief. Believing in something that is rationally justified or not is a belief.
This is Eric. I'm done because this caller is dishonest. They have no interest in actually proceeding on this topic, but you might do better.
I'm highly interested in that.
Stop talking, Jiro. Stop talking, Jiro. I'm bowing out of this conversation entirely and leaving it up to Eric because I have no more
Matt,
patience.
Are we here just for you to talk? Because
okay, you dishonest piece of shit. I'm going to maintain my zen. Yes, you are here just for me to talk, which is why I'm literally saying that I'm done talking and going to let my co-host talk to you because I think you're a dishonest piece of crap. Because every time we spend and put in the effort to make a rational argument and talk about what's rational, you go back to, well, that's just your belief. Well, dude, what, did you watch The Big Lebowski last night and then you feel like your penis grew 3 sizes that day? Is that what's going on? That you want to just dismiss everything that's a belief? It's only your belief that it's rationally justified. It's not only my belief that it's rationally justified. It is supported by the evidence. If you don't share that belief, that's your problem. But the purpose of you calling in is not just for me to talk. The purpose for you to call in is to present the reason why you think we should agree with you. And if you present reasons that we've already evaluated and shown to be fallacious, they're not going to be convincing to us or the audience, but they will be educational and informative. We will be able to keep using you as a prop to expose the fallacious thinking and the dishonest argumentation tactics of theists. Because every time we put forward a case for rationality, you find a way to just dismiss it as just a belief. So I'm going to leave this with Eric, because the only question I have for you is, it's just your belief. Why should we give a shit about your belief? But you know what? I don't give a shit about your belief anymore. So I'm backing out. Please continue without me talking.
Thank you. When a detective looks at a crime scene, sees shattered glass everywhere, a dead body and some blood and a knife. Let's say, let's say this takes place in a kitchen and there's a hot dog bun on the ground. Does that detective take that hot dog bun as evidence? That all depends on if it had anything to do with the crime that took place, right? One person may look at that as evidence. That hot dog bun, any arbitrary item, that hot dog bun might be
Jiro,
evidence. It might have aided the person to commit the crime.
Yeah. So Jiro, I see where you're going with this. Okay. So we're talking about evidence here, and I will delineate between good evidence and bad evidence, or weak evidence and strong evidence. Strong evidence is evidence that points to singular conclusions, preferably, or a very, very minimal set of conclusions. Whereas bad evidence or weak evidence points to a whole lot of conclusions. So we can just get past all that, and we can just get to the fact. We can get to the question: what evidence do you have for this God? And so far, you've appealed to not understanding, or take that back. I don't want to be condescending. You've appealed to everything around us and simply said, well, this obviously explains a God. And we're asking, how does that work? Because I've pointed out that your inability to imagine how this stuff came about here naturally does not add evidence for a God. Your refusal to believe that it came here naturally does not add evidence to a God. So what is your evidence?
Sir, this is where the problem lies. This is why you have millions of callers and you don't come to any conclusion at all. This is why, because you cannot agree on what is good or bad evidence. We as humans have trouble.
We can't agree on what Jiro, I just gave you my definition for good and bad evidence. You waving everything and saying, I don't know how this got here, is not good evidence. It's bad evidence.
How? Okay.
I gave you my.
Maybe we should. Can I flip the tables on you?
Jiro, do you agree with my definition for good and bad evidence? Like, do you agree with this?
Can you repeat it? I probably didn't catch it.
Okay, please listen more carefully to my definition of evidence.
Yes,
good evidence are observations, data that point to preferably one conclusion, but a minimal set of conclusions. Bad evidence points to many conclusions. So with your hot dog analogy at a crime scene, that's evidence that a hot dog manufacturer CEO did the murder. He left his calling card as a hot dog bun. That's evidence of that. It's not good evidence, but it's evidence of that. So
yeah, it would be pretty ridiculous to assume the hot dog bun had anything to do.
So good evidence. I agree.
I'll give you.
So Jiro, we're in alignment here. Okay, so we have a point of commonality here. We know what good evidence and bad evidence is. So I'm asking you, do you have good evidence for this God? And if yes, what is it?
Now, going by your definitions of good and bad evidence, observation and data. Does the observation and data hint us? Is it believable? Is it the most believable option that there is a God, there's a creator behind everything? And I would argue, and here's where the problem is, that yes, there is. This is the argument. Can you listen?
What is it? What is it? Just get past the script. Jiro, get past the script and just give us the evidence.
And I'm just gonna it's gonna repeat what I said before. But
Jiro, we're having Jiro.
We have observed.
Jiro,
can you listen, please? I'm getting past.
Go ahead. What have we observed?
We have observed with every single thing there is ever in science, and mind you, that science goes off of this. Science is built upon this foundation that there is a cause behind every effect. We have observed behind every single effect that there has to be a cause, and that leads us back to God. Yes, we have, and that is unfair of you to say
Jiro. All right, Jiro, I am going to mute you really quick here. Jiro, we have not observed every single effect and determined that every single effect has a cause. We have not done that. You are making a massive assumption there.
I will say, I don't want to talk to Jiro, but as long as you're talking about causality, causality is limited to the universe. We can't explore beyond the universe. No. We don't know if the laws within the universe that we kind of understand about causality, we cannot extrapolate to suggest that they apply beyond the universe as well. But even if you could, even if you determined that the origin of the universe had to have some cause that was external, which is not necessarily true, but even if you concluded that, that doesn't in any way justify that the cause is a God of any sort. This is the same. I mean, over and over again, you're sitting here saying, present the good evidence, present the good evidence. And instead of good evidence, what he's doing is saying, oh, we've explored and we know that cause and effect occurs. Yes, we have a pretty good understanding of causality, but there's also A-type time and B-type time and a number of different scientific models that address simultaneous causality and other things that. So this gross oversimplification of what causality is within a box is being pulled out of there and tried to apply to causality outside of a box. And if you're going to do that, which is already fallacious, you have to do it honestly, which is within the universe, there is causality that is not a thinking agent. And so you don't get to just leave that part of causality behind as well.
Matt, after we've just, am I muted?
Go ahead.
Hello? After we've determined that there's a cause and effect, then we can start getting into what this cause and effect was, what this cause was. And let me say one thing. If there is such a thing as an uncaused effect or an unaffected cause, then that lies outside of science, because science is the observation. It is the testing of cause and effect. It is the pattern recognition in us humans of observing cause and effect. And because if you assume that there is such a thing, which I don't believe there is, because no evidence has pointed to it, because if you were to collect evidence on that, that would be outside of science. Do you understand? Hello?
Jiro,
Am I muted?
Jiro, even if we were to roll with all of that, which we don't, even if we were, you still haven't presented any evidence for a
Please
God.
explain why.
Because here's the thing, Jiro, here's the thing. You can try to tear down science and our processes as much as you want.
I'm not tearing down science. I'm not tearing down science.
Jiro, you are explicitly trying to say this is what science can't do. And if we were to agree with you on that,
lies outside
Jiro,
of science.
Literally what I just said. So, Jiro,
okay.
Jiro, you could do all this. You could do this song and dance and try to bring down science or point out science's limitations as much as you want. That gives you nothing for the God idea. Nothing.
Here's the thing with this 30-minute setup, with this 30-minute call setup, I have to take baby steps in order to get to the mega idea here. We can't even settle upon cause and effect here.
I'll give $1 million
to get to
charity if this caller has a mega idea. But
I know.
I don't have
Jared, just skip to the end.
I don't have the mega idea. I'm simply
so it's a big question mark.
Idea.
So it's a big question mark. You choose to believe as God, and I say, okay, I don't see good evidence for that. You fail to present good evidence for it. So we're right back at square one. You're making an unfounded claim that we are rejecting.
Well, if you want me to get to the next step, then can we agree on the first step? Can we come to a consensus so we know caller after this has to go through the same thing again to convince you? Is there such thing as an effect without a cause?
I have no idea. I have not observed all effects.
Well, the evidence. Well, I'll tell you, my friend, the evidence.
Jiro, I'm talking. Jiro, no.
Yes.
You're committing a black swan fallacy here. Jiro, we have not observed all effects. We have not determined that all effects have a cause. I have no idea whether all effects must have a cause or if there are exceptions to that. No idea, neither do you.
And also, there's the limitation of dealing with causality within space-time and causality outside of space-time where we can't explore it. This is the same problem. So there, generally speaking, cause precedes effect. There are other views of time, so there's not 100% agreement here, even from the science. But what the scientists will point to, anybody, and by the way, it's going to be philosophers as well within the realm of causality, is that we have continually, reliably observed what we describe as causality. We extrapolate and infer that it is universal and applies. And what we do is we go out and investigate. Science is limited to these sort of presuppositions. There are things science can test and things science can't test. Testability is one, stop talking. Testability is one functional aspect of not only science, but skepticism and sound epistemology. It is absolutely useless to propose that X is possible if X is untestable and unfalsifiable. We cannot demonstrate that the existence of a God is even possible under most definitions. You would have to first define your God and then show how it's possible. And it doesn't become possible merely because we haven't shown its impossibility, because it may not be possible to demonstrate impossibility, even if it is in fact impossible. So the caller is basically taking a look at, here's how things work in my house. It must work that way somewhere else, which is a reasonable inference as long as you have a way to understand that what is the other place you're talking about is like your place. The laws of physics don't work
That is
differently
a
in
good point.
Eric's house. Would you stop fucking talking? The
Keep
laws
going.
of physics. Okay, I'm going to mute you because I don't need your approval to keep going. I need you to shut your fucking pie hole. The laws of physics, because I'm teaching something here. If you cared about learning, you would have shut up and learned already, but you don't. The laws of physics don't work differently in Eric's house than they work at my house, as far as we can tell. We also don't know that the laws of physics work in every part of the universe because we haven't been able to explore it. There are models that counter Big Bang cosmology and counter our understanding of a variety of things that aren't contingent on a uniformity of physics. We have an inability to explore the universe back in the past because we don't have a time machine, but also the mathematics breaks down to Planck time, so we can't talk about before the expansion. And we run with an inference of reliability. I would ask, if I gave a shit what this caller thinks or what their big ideas were, if you believe in a God that science can't investigate, what criteria are you using to explore, test, and verify that God? Because it sounds to me like all you're doing is rationalizing why you believe in something that's untestable, unfalsifiable, and unverifiable. But what do I know?
What it sounds to me like, Jiro, like I said, science has its limitations. Sure, we can fully acknowledge that. Science examines the natural. So we can both agree on that. But just because science is limited in its scope doesn't mean that things outside of science, we can just do whatever we want to try to establish their existence. It's not like the Wild West out there. These are important questions, I agree, that we want to answer, and we want to expand the scope of science to cover these things if possible. But because science has its threshold doesn't mean that anything goes outside of it. So I'm going to ask again, what is the evidence for this? Without a preamble, without a script, without baby steps, just give me some evidence. For example, I'll give you some really good evidence for the Old Testament God. I think it was in 1 Kings when there was the pray-off against the Baal gods. And I think it was Elijah or Elisha prayed for water-soaked wood to light on fire. And in the story it did. That's evidence for that God. That's a pretty strong evidence for that God. There might be some other explanations. Pretty strong evidence for that God. Can you give me something like that? Something similar? Can you give me a process to use to test whether this God exists or not? Or is it all just going to be
let's say I did
talk?
Now, let's say I did that. Let's say I could. And I'll admit to you, I have not heard a word from God besides from what's in the Bible. I have not seen, and I do not have any evidence the way you want it, like that. But let's say for a second I did. Would you believe it?
That would be strong evidence. It would get me closer to. Hold on, I'm answering your question. The answer is no, not right away, but damn, you would get me a lot closer. And if we can couple that with other strong evidences, you would get me even closer. And you might get me past the threshold of belief and get me believing in that God. That's what good evidence does. Good evidence, when paired with other good evidence, reduces the set of conclusions. And if you can get that evidence to bring it down to one conclusion, man, you got a good reason to believe that thing.
Hey, Eric.
So that's what I'm asking for.
That would be good.
Can you imagine if that detective showed up and said, hey, I don't have evidence that the butler did it, but if I had evidence that the butler did it, would you believe it then? That's the level of fucking apologetics that when you repeatedly ask for evidence for nearly half an hour, you get this tap dance around all kinds of things about, well, that's just your belief and you can't trust this and you don't know this and you can't do that and this is just a belief and this is a belief. But what if there was evidence? Well, if there was evidence, I would believe it, just like I will believe anything if there's sufficient evidence to warrant belief. What a complete fucking shame that no theist in the history of the universe.
In a courtroom,
why are you talking?
I agree.
I don't know why you're fucking talking. I don't know why you're fucking talking. I do know why you're talking, because you think if you can interrupt me
because
while I'm
on a talk show, Matt, and if you didn't mute me,
see, you're trying to interrupt me because I'm making strong points to expose your weak points and weak mind. And you think that if you can interrupt me, you will throw me off track and prevent me from making this strong point. And in many cases, you would be correct, because sometimes I get distracted by calling out what a dishonest piece of crap you are, and then I forget what I was saying. And I might do that right now because I've said several sentences. I don't know. Did I? Did it work? See, yes, it did. Congratulations. You successfully threw me off my point. But you know what you didn't do? You didn't make it so that people can't rewind to go back and hear you do that. You didn't make it so that people can't review what was actually being said. And you didn't make it so that you can ever speak if I don't want you to speak. Because I'm here pointing out that it would be really interesting if somebody did that. But in the entire history of the universe, no apologist has ever presented strong, good evidence for any God ever. All they can do is say, well, you know, cause and effect works. Maybe there was a cause. If I had evidence for cause, would you believe it? I'm a skeptic. I will genuinely believe anything for which there is sufficient evidence, and I will change my mind if it's shown that my evidence is not good and that my reasoning is flawed. That's how I got from being a fundamentalist, Southern Baptist Christian to an outspoken atheist and skeptic, because I learned about sound epistemology, the limits of science. And just because science has a limit doesn't mean you are ever justified in positing something beyond that limit. How convenient that you believe in an untestable, unfalsifiable God. You'll never be proven wrong, and you'll sit there comfortable in your delusion that you're rational when you're not. Okay.
Callers, do you see how Matt unfairly mutes me and gets to talk all he wants? And then once I make a debate or a topic, he starts derailing my thoughts. Anyways,
Jiro.
am I muted again?
Jiro,
I can't tell.
no, you're not muted. But Jiro,
you're not muted. You are laughable at this point because we've repeatedly asked you for evidence. I haven't derailed your thought not once.
That's all that you've been doing, Matt.
Okay.
That is very unfair, my friend.
No, tell us, Jiro. I'm not your fucking friend. I'll never be your fucking friend. Tell us how I derailed your thought.
You are my friend, okay? I'm not your friend. You're my friend.
I'm not your fucking friend. I'm not your friend. I'm not your fucking friend.
You're my
friend. Please tell me.
Yes, you are.
You're not my friend. I'm not your friend. We're not fucking friends.
You're my buddy.
Are you going to keep distracting with this friend thing, or are you going to explain how I derailed your thought while you're derailing by doing this friend thing?
Well, all you have to do is tell the viewers to look back on the video that you've been muting me like 20 times already in mid-conversation.
Yes. I'm muting you now because you're being a whiny little bitch complaining about being muted instead of presenting evidence for your God. So I'm going to unmute you again. The callers can go back and watch it. By the way, they can go back and watch 20 years of content of me doing this, and they can watch the last caller and the one before that, who, when we engaged in conversation with them, was absolutely fine. We barely had to mute anybody at all. It's only the people like you who call in to say that you want to present your case for God, and then when we ask you for evidence, we have to ask you 20 times while you lecture. I'm just trying to build a case so that other callers don't have to come back to this remedial stuff for you when you're the one with the demonstrably remedial understanding of the topics. I'm going to unmute you again, and I'm going to bet you're speaking.
Matt, those two callers that you did not mute only agreed with you. They only said what you wanted them to say. That's why you did not mute them.
I'm sorry, Jiro, but there's 20 years of calls of me engaging with people who disagree with me, including you. 20 years. I'm going to unmute you again so you can cry some more. So it's your choice. Are you going to cry some more? Are you going to cry some more? Or are you going to present evidence for your God? It's your choice.
Am I unmuted again?
Are you going to cry some more? Or are you going to present evidence for God? Those are your only two choices.
I'm not crying, man. I'm just pointing out.
You are crying.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what.
Okay. Here's the thing. When I unmute you, and I will, I need you to say, my evidence for God is, and then present your evidence. Anything else, and I will hang up. You're unmuted.
Can I start with a different thing? If I believe in God, why I believe in God?
I'm a man of my word.
Go.
And you did not start with the phrase that I said that you needed to start with, so I dropped you.
Can you imagine Jiro was a prosecutor and he needs to convict somebody. He wants to get somebody convicted for murder. And instead of going into the evidence for why the suspect did the murder, he instead goes into, well, we need to talk about beliefs, or we need to actually talk about what good and weak evidence is. And we need to talk about the limitations of science. Like, can you imagine if a prosecutor started an argument like that? Basically, instead of presenting reasons for belief, he points out supposed perceived insufficiencies with certain processes or with evidence or with logic, or what have you. That's not how you demonstrate anything. Those might be fun conversations to have without the goal of establishing that a god or a deity exists. Sure, we can always talk about science and what its limitations are. But Jiro, we're begging you for the evidence there. I gave you examples. We even admitted that, yes, with the right evidence, you could get us to believe in this God. What was it? And you just could not give it to us. Ask yourself, why is that the case? Could it be that you're just doing 4D chess here and we just simply can't perceive what you're thinking? Or maybe you're just holding an empty bag and you have no evidence. Which of those two?
Imagine if you did have evidence. There's a pro tip. If you believe something and the words, I don't have evidence, but imagine if I did, would you believe it? Ever leave your mouth? Yeah. You're the one that lost.
Imagine the prosecutors saying that. I don't have evidence, but just imagine fellow jurors or jury of our peers. I did have evidence. Imagine how that would be. Yeah. Pretty bad.
It is.
And Jiro.
So there's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I was going to lecture him on the crybabyiness, but it's not important. Go ahead.
It's a big distraction, and it's why I can't take those people seriously. It's not that everybody who called in before that we didn't mute has agreed with us. Maybe that was true of a couple of callers during today's show. But I've been doing this for 20 years, and we've had plenty of calls, and we've had contentious calls. And by the way, I get paid to have these debates where I don't have a mute button. The difference between Jiro and the people that I do debates with are that they can make a point, they can make an argument, they can present their evidence, and they can communicate without whining like a little baby, without, I know I showed up to this debate to convince you that God exists, but I don't have evidence, but what if I did? Okay, well, call me back when you do, and don't call me back until you do. Pretty easy.
Hey, if you liked this video, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't
That's
like
where
it,
you would say,
subscribe.
Okay.
You didn't even give me a chance.
There was such a long pause.
What are you on speed or something? I barely had a chance.
Let's try again. Hey, I hope you liked. Hey, I hope you. Fuck. Hey there. I hope you liked that clip. Hey, I hope you liked that clipper just now, the one that you just watched with your eyes. If you did like it, why don't you click that like button?
And if you didn't like it, tell Jimmy to go fuck himself.
Hey, I hope you liked that clip right now. If you did like it, why don't you hit that like button?
And if you didn't like it, go ahead and subscribe anyway.